In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Welcome to The Perspective.
He was in the beginning with God.
You're watching The Perspective with Mike Sherbino.
What about those moments in your life when you felt you could never go on, and then suddenly there was an intervention? A mysterious person showed up, or a package came just in time in the mail, or maybe there was a gift of money given to you that was totally unexplainable, and suddenly you were able to keep going. You had been praying, you've been asking God for a miracle, but you really doubted that it was ever going to happen, and then suddenly it showed up. Hi, I'm Mike Sherbino, and today on The Perspective, we're going to talk with an amazing couple who have been on the program many times, SQuire and Louise Rushnell. They're with us to talk to us about their Godwinks stories that they have written, numerous books containing these amazing occurrences when God showed up. Did you know they've been featured not only in their books and in their prolific writing, but also with Hallmark movies? Once a year, they would feature the Godwinks story. They've been on Netflix. We think of the amazing story of Rescue by Ruby, and the list goes on and on. But you're going to be fascinated as they talk about their life of prayer and as they talk about the amazing stories of people who are testifying that at the last moment, at the moment when they felt they couldn't go on, God showed up. And He wants to show up in your life today. He is there. Be open to receive what He has to give to you. And then I'm going to come back after we've talked with SQuire and Louise, and I'm going to open up God's Word so that you can understand how you too can be strong, how you can persevere, even in the moments when you feel like God isn't there. But let me tell you, He is there. Hey, welcome back to The Perspective. I am so excited that SQuire and Louise are with us today. It's so good to see you folks. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike is like a member of the family, isn't
I
he?
know, right?
Yeah, we can't get rid of him.
Well, he's actually
Gee,
been
thanks.
right
been
at
in
this
our house.
table with us here. Yeah.
All right, I
He
just want
finally
to.
left.
Okay, all right. So, Louise, despite what you just said, did SQuire bring you a bagel this morning in bed and coffee?
Of course, Mike. He does with a cup of coffee, and then we have a cup's worth of prayer afterwards. Yes.
Okay. Well,
5
I
minutes.
want to talk about prayer, but like, is there some of that good blueberry jam that was on the bagel like I've enjoyed at your place?
Oh,
Mhm.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But not only
All
blueberry
right.
jam with cream cheese.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We specialize in that here.
That's right.
All right. Well, SQuire, you know the way to a woman's heart, so all of that is so good. But
Yeah.
Louise, you talked about you pray together, and
Yeah.
not everyone has heard your amazing story. Just tell us about your little routine as you begin the day and how it has changed your life and how you're encouraging others to follow example.
Yeah. Well, we got married about 27 years ago, but Squire had been married twice before. I'm Mrs. Rushnell the third, and I was married for 20 years before. We got together, and it was my suggestion. I said, Squire, how would you feel about praying together? And he said, oh, I'd love that. I said,
That's
every
cool.
yeah, that's cool.
Nobody ever suggested that
Right.
before.
Right, with your
Husbands and
former
wives.
spouses.
Well, I'm talking about no pastor had ever mentioned that.
That's true.
Yeah.
And so we started praying together, and we started seeing things happen in our lives that were, can I say, and I don't mean this lightly, I mean it literally, supernatural things started happening. And we said, wow, there's something in this. And so then we started sharing that with other couples. And when they started praying, they were seeing the same kind of miraculous things happen. Marriages were being healed, intimacy. It's like, it is the most intimate act between a man and a woman is to be so transparent in front of each other that you share your heart.
Yeah.
And that's what we do every single day.
Yeah.
So as you share that, it developed into something else, and you have come up with this interesting phrase that I love, Godwinks. Um,
Hmm.
Squire, tell us about that and the whole series of books that have emerged from that. And then I'm going to come back to Louise and ask for one of her most recent best stories. That's a Godwink.
Well, a God wink is one of those experiences. You are tempted to use the word coincidence, but you know that that isn't satisfactory. And that's how the writing of the books, the God wink books, began 25 or 30 years ago. And I always thought maybe there was more to coincidence than coincidence. Or people would ask, well, what do you call a coincidence that isn't a coincidence? So it felt as though we needed to find a word for that. Now, I never bothered going to the dictionary to look up coincidence. Why would you go to the dictionary to look up a word you know the meaning to? But I didn't know the meaning to it. Because when you look up coincidence in the dictionary, it says two remarkable events that come together without apparent cause. Well, a God wink, which is the word that we came up with, is two remarkable events that come together with a cause, and that cause is divine. And so that explains why that word went right into the language very, very quickly. And it is now translated into story after story in more than 400 or 500 stories in 13 books. And we're looking at the 14th and 15th on the runway right now. So God winks is now in the vernacular.
I wasn't sure how many books you'd written. I was going to say 12, and then I knew there was moved to 13. Now we're coming up with 14. Louise, tell me one of your best stories that just jumps out in your mind.
Well, one thing I know is that God answers the prayers of little kids. Because as a kid growing up in Quincy, Massachusetts, my dream was always to meet Carol Burnett. She was the woman that I wanted to meet more than anyone else in the whole world. And I used to dream and pray about doing sketches with the great Tim Conway and Harvey Korman. So years later, I end up in California and I start getting into the entertainment industry because I really wanted to be Carol Burnett. That's how I got into it. And when I had done a show called Off the Wall, which was kind of like a Saturday Night Live, uh, the writers knew I loved Carol, and they wrote in a sketch of me doing Carol Burnett when she used to ask questions of the audience. She'd say, "Hi, how y'all doing? Y'all have any questions? Yep, you in the back." And so I was doing this sketch, and the next morning I get a phone call, and I pick up the phone and I hear, "Hi, Louise, this is Carol Burnett. Listen, I saw you do an impression of me last night, and I thought it was a hoot. And I would love to meet you." Well, I got to meet Carol Burnett, the woman I wanted to meet more than anyone else in the whole world. She was absolutely fabulous, everything I dreamed she would be. And then when I left her and I was going into my car, I just looked up to heaven and I said, "Oh God, if I can just meet Tim and Harvey now." And through an amazing God wink, Tim saw some of the sketches that I had done in the past. He and Harvey were doing a show together called Together Again, and they were doing a live show. Of course, they couldn't afford Carol Burnett, so they were kind of looking for the cheap version. And so he had all these tapes on his desk, and he was going to be looking at everyone. And he took the first one, and it happened to be mine. I don't even know how it got there, to be honest with you, but he put it in. In those days, it was VCR, put it in there, and it was me doing all these sketches. And he called me up and he said, "How'd you like to join us?" And I did that show for 12 years with Tim and Harvey.
A lot of God winks in that story.
That
When
is-
you think about that pile of tapes
Yeah.
and how did her tape get on the top of that whole pile?
Mm.
And we can say, well, that's impossible, but nothing is impossible with God.
And how did Carol Burnett see that show that
How
night?
did she just be?
Right.
Yeah,
She just
absolutely.
happened, no happens.
We were divinely aligned to be at the right place at the right time
Right.
for God to work his business and for a God wink to happen.
And that was an answer to prayer. And people will say to us, well, you guys have all these Godwinks. And I know some people, they have all these. How do you get more Godwinks? More prayer, more Godwinks,
Yeah.
because it lines you. Says, in all your ways, acknowledge me, and I shall direct your steps. And when we acknowledge God, we're on like a GPS, God's positioning system, and he starts directing us to be exactly where we're supposed to be, that prayer that he wants to answer.
And there's a principle that we have that when I talk to God, it's prayer. When he talks to me, it's a God wink.
Wow.
He always answers our
We're going to come
prayers.
back and talk more about that in just a moment. I'm here with SQuire and Louise, just loving the conversation. We'll be back in a moment, friends. And as you're watching, if you just sense, man, I just wish there was someone that I could talk to who would pray with me, call that toll-free number, 855-910-6297. More than anything, I want you to know that you are not alone. You're loved by God. He cares for you, and he wants to meet you in the midst of your moment right now. We'll be back in just a moment. Hey, welcome to The Perspective. Mike Sherbino here. We're glad you're with us.
It's all right here. Watch when you want, where you want.
Well, welcome to The Perspective. I'm Lori.
Real stories, honest questions,
Strong.
a fresh perspective, right where you are.
Today, take time to relish
The Perspective. Follow, like, share. You're part of the mission.
Welcome back to The Perspective. And Louise, as you were sharing about your journey with Tim Conway and Harvey Korman, I was telling you off, before we came on the air, that these clips pop up on my phone and I look at them and I can just picture you doing the sketches with them. And it was such fun humor. And people still love it.
And you know what's interesting, Mike, is that I know that at a certain age, of course, we all remember them from the Carol Burnett show, but if you have a kid look at those sketches, they will laugh so hard because funny is funny.
Yeah. And they're always clean.
Right.
Yeah. And I love that aspect, and we can talk about it a bit more, but I want to go back to how we started the program today, talking about the amazing SQuire serving you bagels in bed. That's a pretty good line, bagels in bed.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
I
I
think
like
we have
that
our
one.
new book, Squire.
Yeah, as long as I can do the preface
the
for it,
foreword.
I'll do the forward. The praying part. Guys, talk to me about that and speak into the hearts of people right now who just say, my relationship is pulling apart. There's not a chance it's going to come together. How do we invite
Right.
God into the midst of it?
Yeah. If and this television series that we're going to talk about, I'm just going to flag that just a little bit. Pray Stay Challenge. We will introduce 6 couples, and every single couple will have had that dream at the altar that we all had. The dream that it was going to be a blissful time together. And then as time went on, the children came, worries came, crises came, and the wheels started coming off the whole wonderful wagon that was going along. And now they're at a place where they're either desperate to keep it together or they're just in a stagnant place. They go to dinner and they don't talk to each other. And, if you want to have that come back in your life, there is such an easy way for this to happen. Take the challenge that Louise and I took, and we take every day. We pray together 5 minutes a day. Now, that doesn't mean you have to stick it for 5 minutes, but we're talking about the amount of time it takes to drink a cup of coffee. If you just do that 5 minutes a day, it's free. It's very easy to do because it doesn't take that much time. And if you are apart, you can text or you can pray in the back of a cab on the way to the airport. But praying together every single day, I promise you, is a mysterious, supernatural experience that comes directly from God. And I don't know how he does it, but we've been doing this now for 25 years and we haven't had anybody come back who took the 40-day challenge, praying together 5 minutes a day for 40 days. Nobody has ever come back and said, well, we did exactly what you said. We prayed together every day and nothing happened. In 2 weeks, people that are in a marriage that they think is good come skipping back and they say, this is amazing. Why didn't anybody ever tell us? And in our culture, I'm talking about the Canadian culture, the United States of America culture, I think a culture around the globe, the idea of husbands and wives praying together
Consistent.
every single day as a non-negotiable habit is simply not in the conversation. I mean, it's sure it is. If you got crises, you pray together. Yes, you say grace at the table, but saying prayers together, one-on-one with each other, 5 minutes a day is remarkable. Now, when you do that, you are opening up the possibility. You're opening up the channel because God has been invited in. Like Paul said in the Bible, 3 chords. You,
Three strands of
me,
cord. That's right.
and
Yeah.
God. When you take those and you wind them together, you have an unbreakable
That's right.
bond, an unbreakable rope. And that's what happens.
That's right.
And God says, when any 2 of you come together in agreement, pray together,
Love that.
my Father in heaven will give you whatever you ask. So it seems to me that it is the best thing that was invented by Jesus, but needs to be reinvented and repurposed in today's culture. And that's what we're about to do with a television show that will show people how to do it.
Well, I'm so excited, as you talk about this and to think about praying together and praying with bagels as well, because bagels make it better. Yes. So Louise, what's on your mind right now as you're listening to SQuire share? What do you want to add?
Well, we've been we call it pushing the rock up a hill for many, many years, going to churches and telling couples how wonderful it is to pray together. What's so great is that, there were times, to be honest with you, Mike, I kind of got discouraged and I said, we're going to these churches, but everyone needs to do this. And then one day in our prayer time, Squire said, what we need to do? We need to get it on a TV series. We need to get it nationally and international. And that's where we're at now, because that power is something that not only is the super glue that keeps a marriage together, but it's as Squire often says, there's collateral damage when a couple gets divorced, but there's collateral blessings for the family, especially the children, when couples stay together. And
Yeah.
we want to we want to see the divorce rate go down.
Yeah, we're going to claim it.
Yeah. Well, I want to help you guys as much as I can. I'm so excited by what you're sharing. And now I'm going to ask for a miracle. Okay. The
Mhm.
miracle is this, Squire. I want you to share your best Godwinks story in 1 minute, because that's all you got.
That's a miracle.
And on your mark, get set, go.
Okay, my best Godwink story. Well, actress Diane Lane was feeling great sadness. She was in the back of a cab in New York City, or back of a limousine on her way to an interview, and she was sad because her dad had just passed away. Her father actually raised her, and he helped her in her career and everything. And now she was on her way to Charlie Rose's TV studio, which was his favorite show.
Mhm.
And she's feeling such melancholy. She looks out the window, and in New York City, you see all of these yellow cabs in different directions. And she was feeling melancholy about that because he was a cab driver. His medallion was 6F99. 6F99. And within moments, the car she was in pulled up to the curb. She dabbed her eyes a little bit and stepped out onto the curb, and her heart leapt. Pulling in right in front of their car was New York cab 6F99. her dad's old medallion. What are the mathematical odds? With God, there are no odds.
Yes.
Well, that
It's an
sounds to me like a Godwink, and you only took an extra 10 seconds. That was fantastic. But we needed to hear that. Somebody needed to hear that today. And
Yeah.
I just want to encourage you both to keep pressing on and keep running hard because I know that what you are saying is impacting so many people. And I just pray that God would give lift to your wings in ways you could never imagine. Thanks for being with us today. We got
Thanks,
to
Mike.
run right now. Folks, you're watching The Perspective. I'm going to be back in just a moment. You know, in the midst of adversity, we're always told we need to be strong, to not quit, to persevere, to press on. And all of that is good and it can be true, but how do we do it? Where do we find the strength? Where do we find the faith to believe that God is with us, even when it seems the night is as black as it could ever be? I want to take us to the Old Testament today, and I want to unpack the secret to being strong. Being strong not in ourselves, but in the strength that God gives us. And when we think of being strong and facing those dark moments of the soul, which maybe some of you are going through today, I'm not talking about physical strength. Sometimes we might think that being strong is being headstrong itself or determined. And often, what fuels an individual can be anything from a passion to prove themselves, I'm going to at least die trying, or it's cousin's pride. And sometimes it can even be revenge that gives us the strength. None of those things will sustain you or carry you through. We're going to take a different look today at the man Nehemiah, the man that God used to help rebuild the walls of Jerusalem at a time when people said it was impossible. It was a bleak, it was a dark time. If ever there was a moment for a Godwink for him to show up, it would have been now. And guess what? He did. God does show up. He's there with his people. And as they're reflecting back on what happened and how they built the walls of Jerusalem, we jump ahead in the story to the 8th chapter of Nehemiah. And it's a period of celebration. But I want you to hear the instructions that are given to the people after they've seen such great success, because in it lies the secret that you and I need for every day. Here, let me read it. Nehemiah the governor, Ezra the priest, a teacher of the law, and the Levites who were instructing the people said to them, "This day is holy to the Lord your God. Don't mourn or weep, for all the people have been weeping as they listen to the words of the law." Nehemiah said, "Go and enjoy choice food, sweet drinks, and send some to those who have nothing prepared. This day is holy to our Lord. Do not grieve, for the joy of the Lord is your strength." Over and over, Nehemiah had proved that in the face of insurmountable odds, the presence of God was more than enough to carry him through. He prayed, he listened, he wept, he fasted, he sought after God, and he listened for the quiet voice of God. Did he ever make mistakes? Absolutely. He was human like you and I. But you know what? That's what causes us to get down on our knees and say, "Lord, I need to be corrected." You see, the strength that Nehemiah had came not from being confident in himself, not from being determined that he was somehow going to do it. No, it came from his encounter with the very presence of God. Have you ever wondered what makes people tick? Have you ever wondered what makes you tick? Nehemiah is a man who we need to learn from. What is it that we learn from him? Well, if we go right back to chapter 1 and 2 of his story, we learn that he knew the secret of listening for the voice of God and feeling the nudge of God to be directed to take steps of faith. He was the cupbearer to the king of Babylon in Susa, the capital. And while he was there, in that role, he heard of the trauma that his people were going through back in Jerusalem, how they were unable to complete the building program because the walls were torn down from the last time when the Babylonians had gone in and decimated the place. And the people could not rebuild because they weren't protected from the outside, from the invading armies that would keep coming in to pillage and from raiding bands. And God moved on Nehemiah's heart. And somehow he prayed, he cried out to God for a period of 3 or 4 months, and God heard his prayer. And one day he goes in before the king, and the king could tell that he was of a sad countenance. He said, "What's wrong?" And that was a do or die moment for Nehemiah. But because he'd been praying, because he had found new strength in God, he faced the king and he said, "Here's the situation that I'm dealing with in my heart." And the king was being prepared by God through prayer. It was a God wink moment. And the king said, "How can I help you? I'm going to release you from your job for a period of time. I'm going to send you 800 miles back to Jerusalem. I'm going to sign a letter and give you all that you need to rebuild the walls. I'm going to make a way for you." I'm sure Nehemiah, you could hear his jaw hit the floor as it dropped. God had heard, God had answered. It had been a God wink moment. And now, after the walls had been complete, probably in the course of a whole year or year and a half later, from start to beginning, Nehemiah tells the people, "The joy of the Lord is your strength." It is his joy that sustained him. It's his God's joy that will sustain you. And it's his joy in the midst of the moments when we learn to praise him and give him thanks that we realize God is there. He is present in the room. Today, let it be your God wink moment.
Why is it that some people rise as heroes of their story, filled with courage, resilience, and determination, while others surrender when faced with the same challenges?
When I faced a life-altering disability, I encountered a world of new challenges, along with a storm of negative thoughts and self-doubt. But in that struggle, I discovered something remarkable: the power of choice.
We may not be able to control the challenges we face, but we can control how we respond. That's our superpower. This 6-session transformative course will help you unleash your superpower.
Fortify your courage to conquer life's challenges.
Strengthen your resilience.
Shatter those limiting beliefs.
And ignite a determination to unlock your full potential.
It's time to kick faulty thinking to the curb and be the hero of your story.
In the midst of the uncertainties of life, remember this, that God is there with you. He is your refuge and your strength. And when all of a sudden it seems like a coincidence has happened and you get through it, don't wipe your brow and say, "Wow, that was a close one." Pause and say, "Lord, thank you again for your presence that is here with me," because God hears and answers prayer. And he's inviting you and I to come together as couples, as individuals, to seek his face and to walk in his presence every day. May today you experience many God winks in your life.